Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Shingles Audio Collection, Volume 3, by Robert Bevan, Rick Gualtieri, Steve Wetherill, and Drew Hayes. Narrated by Cal Wembly and Cassandra Myles. Wax On, Wax Off, by Robert Bevan. 1. "Hey, sport," said Dad, glancing up from his Hustle Whore magazine as I limped through the back door. "How was school?" "Okay, I guess." I was hoping he'd notice my bleeding elbow and black eye, but his attention was firmly focused on the article he was reading and whatever he was doing with his hand under the table. "Is that the FedEx guy?" shouted Mom through a haze of cigarette smoke coming from the bedroom. "Don't you let him leave without paying that $7.50 he owes me. The nerve of him trying to pay me with a credit card like I got a chip reader in my cooch. I told him I'll take it in the rear, but I don't take American She stopped when she staggered into the kitchen and saw me. "God damn, Donny. The fuck happened to you? You sass your daddy?" I shook my head. Bert Fargle pummeled me again after school. Mom went into a coughing fit, spat a big gob of phlegm into the sink, then took a long drag on her cigarette. "Well, you better stop bleeding on my kitchen table before I give you something to bleed about." I picked up the roll of toilet paper next to Dad and started unrolling some. "Not too much," said Mom. "We ain't the goddamn Rockefellers." I pulled off 3 squares and bunched it against the scrape on my elbow. Mom put her cigarette out in the phlegm gob in the sink, then lit up another one. "Gilbert, you seen your son?" "Just a fucking minute, Jolene," said Dad between heavy breaths. "I swear, a man can't even get no privacy in his own goddamn kitchen." Mom blew out a long stream of smoke and shook her head. "That's just like you, Gilbert. Our son's turning into a giant fucking pussy right before our eyes, and all you can think about is twins pissing on each other. God damn mother fucking..." He closed his eyes and sighed heavily. "Oh, God. Oh, God." He opened his eyes and grabbed the roll of toilet paper, which he quickly shoved under the table. "All right already. Now where's the goddamn fire?" "Would you take a look at your son?" said Mom. Dad turned toward me. "Jesus Christ, Donny, you look like your goddamn sister." "Gilbert!" "I have a sister?" I asked. "Your daddy's just exaggerating," said Mom. "We aborted her." Dad stood up and playfully punched Mom in the belly. "What do you mean, we? As I recall, I did all the dirty work." Mom laughed. "Well, according to the official report, I'm the one who fell down the stairs." "We have stairs?" I asked. I couldn't recall our trailer having a second floor. Dad shook his head. "Boy, you're about as smart as you is tough." I could taste blood in my mouth as I beamed at him. "Thanks, Dad." While he was in such a generous mood, I thought it would be a good time for me to bring up my idea for a solution to the problem. "What do you think of me taking karate lessons?" "Karate?" Dad scoffed. "Does this look like fucking China to you? Do you see any fucking dragons flying around?" "There's a karate school just on the other side of the railroad tracks," I persisted. "I can get a job and pay for it myself." Dad sighed. "Donny, them people don't even accept American money. All they take is yin-yangs. If you want to learn how to fight, I suggest you go face off with Bert Fargle again, only this time not like a goddamn queer." I tried hard to think of a way that I might earn some yin-yangs, but I couldn't come up with anything. So instead, I blurted out the next best thing that came to mind. "I could work for the old Chinaman who lives on the corner. I bet he could teach me karate." "You get that thought out of your head right now, young man," said Mom. "Ain't no son of mine gonna suck no Chinaman dick." I didn't even know how to respond to that. I was thinking more like I'd rake his leaves or something. Listen, honey, said Mom. I'm on my way to see Mr. Fargle right now while his wife's busy having their third baby. You want I should ask him to tell Bert to stop beating the shit out of you on account of you being retarded? Am I retarded? Dad shrugged. I mean, if you gotta ask. Mom pinched my cheek as she blew a cloud of smoke in my face. Of course you ain't retarded, sweetie. I whacked off 4 big colored fellers to haul this house to the other side of the crick so we could live in a better school district. You only seem stupid compared to the other kids in your class. Thanks, Mom. My eyes were beginning to water from the cigarette smoke. God damn it, Donny, said Dad. What did I tell you about crying like a little bitch? I coughed. It attracts queers? Too fucking right it does. They can smell little bitch boy tears a mile away. Don't you forget that. Yes, sir. Dad nodded. Now run on down to the Quick Fix and pick me up a case of Coors Light. Mom belched out a smoke ring. And grab me some more Marlboro Reds. Okay. I can't say I relished the idea of going to the Quick Fix at this time of day. Bert Fargle and his gang were probably hanging out in the parking lot. But another beating from him would be better than what I could expect from talking back to my parents. Keeping pressure on the blood-soaked tissue covering my elbow, I shoved the back door open with my butt and headed back outside. 2. Mom and Dad never give me any money for beer and cigarettes. They say that the challenge of figuring out how to steal them builds critical thinking skills, and that I can't yet be tried as an adult. So I went the long way to scope out Quick Fix from behind. Even if I had money, I probably would have taken that route anyway. It made an encounter with Bert Fargle's gang less likely. Passing the old Chinaman's house at the end of the street, I thought again about asking him to teach me karate. But I didn't have the nerve to go knock on his door. I only knew a few phrases in Chinese, and I'm pretty sure they was all made up when me and my friends used to stretch our eyelids out wide and make faces through the window of the Five Dragons restaurant. Still, the thought of kicking Bert Fargle's ass made me stop walking. Surely, realizing that dream was worth a bit of nervous pantomiming. There was a brown car in the driveway, but the house looked like it hadn't been lived in for years. The windows were dark, the paint was peeling, and the hedges in front of the porch were massively overgrown. The whole place gave me kind of a creepy vibe. I paused only briefly, then kept walking. After a hike through the woods, I finally saw the rear of the Quick Fix. Even better, I spotted Gary the hobo tugging on his wiener next to the dumpster. That was going to make my job a lot easier. There's not a whole lot Gary wouldn't do if I agreed to watch him pee on a dead animal. "Hey, Gary!" I called out from a distance in case his rabies was acting up. He turned around, quickly pulling his pants up over his wiener and rolling up the same issue of Hustle Whore that my dad had been reading. "Oh, it's you." He still sounded a little jumpy, but didn't look displeased to see me. "Got any new dead animals around?" "Do I ever? Fought a fat-ass coon to death over a half-eaten Slim Jim this morning. Been drinking puddle water all day to fill my bladder. You want to watch?" I decided to lay my cards on the table. I was kind of hoping you'd run distraction while I swiped a case of beer and a carton of cigarettes. Gary pressed his lips together and nodded. "Nobody appreciates a good show anymore. Everybody wants something. Well, kid, you've got yourself a deal. Just give me a minute to finish up." He grinned and shook his rolled-up magazine. "New Hustle Whore. Twins pissing on each other." "Take your time," I said. Gary turned around and continued to try to yank his wiener off while he read his magazine. As many times as I'd seen him try, he never succeeded, but he really seemed to enjoy the challenge. I supposed there was something to say for continuing to chase that dream, no matter how excruciating success would be. Heavy breathing led to the all-too-familiar sigh of defeat, Then Gary squatted down and pulled an impressively large dead raccoon out from under the dumpster. "You ready?" I laughed. "No way, Gary. You know I'll hold up my end of the deal. Last time I let you go first, you started foaming at the mouth and tried to bite me." "I told you that wasn't me." He pulled his left jacket sleeve up to reveal the festering bite wound that had been getting progressively more gross-looking in the 6 months that I'd known him. "It was the disease." I crossed my arms and raised my eyebrows skeptically. Gary sighed again. "Fine. We'll do your thing first. Wait here." He buttoned his pants, then tiptoed around the corner toward the front of the store. A few seconds later, the commotion started. Through the Quick Fix's back door, I could hear the muffled screams of customers as Gary growled at them and chased them up and down the aisles. "Damn it, Gary!" shouted Old Man Puckett. "What did I tell you about coming in here and biting my customers?" He was 87 years old and nearly blind, so Gary really had to put on a show. I backed away from the door and crouched down next to the dumpster, just in time to avoid Gary as he shoved the door open and started running toward the woods. As always, Old Man Puckett was only a few steps behind him, gun in hand. "You son of a bitch!" he shouted hoarsely, then opened fire. During the distraction, I slipped behind him into the open back door. Gary's performance not only got rid of Old Man Puckett for a few precious seconds, but it also cleared all the customers out of the store. The case of Coors Light was easy enough to grab, but the cigarettes were a little more challenging, situated above the counter. As slow as Old Man Puckett was, and as much as he enjoyed shooting at Gary, I was always worried that he was going to come back in and catch me standing on the counter. Today, I was in luck. There were cases of cigarettes behind the counter that he hadn't stocked yet. I grabbed a few cartons of Marlboro Reds. I wouldn't give them to Mom all at once. I'd just give her what she asked for, but stash a few in my room for the next few times she sent me out. As I was hurrying to the back door, I spotted the latest issue of Hustle Horror in the magazine rack. Curious as to what article my dad and Gary the Hobo found so interesting, I swiped a copy of that as well. When I got outside with my haul, Gary was still running back and forth by the edge of the woods, and Old Man Puckett was still firing shots at him, or at least in his general direction. I crouched down on the other side of the dumpster, then gave Gary the thumbs up. With the next shot Old Man Puckett fired, Gary fell backward and landed flat on the ground. It was an impressive performance, and I was kind of worried that Old Man Puckett had actually hit him. "Goddamn hobos," Old Man Puckett muttered as he hobbled back into his store. After the door closed behind him, I was relieved when Gary lifted his head and returned my thumbs up. Gary didn't look too good as he limped back to the dumpster. At first, I thought maybe he'd hit the ground too hard, but then I saw that he was bleeding from the chest, up near his shoulder. "Gary!" I cried. "Are you okay? Did he actually hit you?" Gary shrugged. "Every now and again he gets a lucky shot. I barely feel it." He punched the wound a couple of times to demonstrate how little it hurt. "One of the perks of rabies, I suppose." He stood over his dead raccoon. "If you want to know what's really killing me right now, it's my bladder." I smiled. "Ready when you are, Gary." While I can't say I enjoyed watching Gary pee on a dead raccoon on its own merit, I was happy to provide him the enjoyment of having an audience right after he'd just literally taken a bullet for me. That happiness came to a screeching halt when Bert Fargle and his gang came around the corner of the shop. 3. "Well, well, well," snarled Bert. "Look at what we have here." His toadies chuckled. "Gather round, children," said Gary. "I'm only just getting started." His stream was strong and steamy as it splattered against the raccoon carcass. Bert narrowed his eyes as he took a step toward me. "Do you know what we do with little bitch babies who like to watch hobos piss on dead raccoons?" The question caught me off guard. Does that situation really come up often enough for you to have established protocol? "We beat the shit out of them." I supposed this specific situation fell under a pretty wide umbrella. Bert Fargle didn't seem like the sort who liked to compartmentalize, and beating the shit out of people seemed to be his default reaction to most things. I picked up Dad's beer and Mom's smokes, then ran as fast as I could for the trees. When I glanced back, I was relieved to find that Bert's entire entourage was fixated on watching Gary pee on the dead raccoon. "He's getting away," said Bert. "Don't just stand there. Let's get him." The forest wasn't dense enough for me to lose them in the cover of tree trunks, but I knew where the narrowest point of the creek was. Hoping I might be able to gain a bit more of a lead while they got stuck looking for a place to cross, I headed that way. "He went this way," said Chris Barnes. Hearing his voice in the crowd stung my heart. He was one of the kids who used to make faces through the window of the Chinese restaurant with me. He only joined Bert Fargle's gang to stop getting the shit beat out of him. "We got to get those cigarettes," said Brad Madison. "Do you know what his mom will do for a single pack?" I considered dropping a carton, but that would only slow down one of them at best. Getting the shit beat out of me by 5 guys wasn't a whole lot different than getting the shit beat out of me by 6 guys. The case of beer was getting really heavy in my arms, and I barely made the jump across the creek. I really hoped Dad wasn't planning to crack one of these open right when I got home. They were going to need some time to settle. Turning back in the direction of my street, I shot a sideways glance at my pursuers. They were closer than I'd expected, running straight toward me instead of turning for the narrower part of the creek. Their faces reminded me of hungry wolves. I couldn't believe my eyes as they leaped over a section of creek I would never have been able to clear. I supposed that made sense, seeing as how they were all a lot more athletic than me and not weighed down with a case of beer. That reminded me of what was at stake. If I let them catch up to me, they would pound the shit out of me and take my beer and smokes. Then my parents would pound the shit out of me for coming back home empty-handed. Failure wasn't an option. I pushed myself to the absolute limit as I ran for my life. My heart felt like it was going to explode, and my lungs couldn't take in oxygen fast enough. Just when I thought I was going to black out, I spotted the last bend in the path. If I could get out of their line of sight for just a few seconds, I might be able to find somewhere to hide. Visualizing the end of my street in my mind, I suddenly knew the perfect place. With a renewed sense of hope, I ran like hell, darted through the Chinaman's open gate, then ducked behind his car. My heart was still pounding. Not daring to look back as I ran, I had no idea if Bert and his gang saw me. If they caught me trying to hide, the beating was going to be that much worse. "Where did he go?" said Bert. He was just on the other side of the fence. I could smell his sweaty pits. "He couldn't have gone far," said Larry Fine. "He's got to be around here somewhere." Bert's sneakers stopped right in front of where I was hiding. "Come on out, Donny douche-rag." Did he see me? Was he looking right at me? I kept my eyes closed and concentrated on not peeing. "Give us that case of beer and I promise we'll let you walk away." The rest of his gang chuckled, which did not lend credibility to his promise. "Come on, Donny. We're going to find you sooner or later, and when we do, you're not going to—" "Shit!" cried Chris. "In the window!" I glanced back instinctively to find the old Chinaman staring right at me, his dragon-like gaze boring into my soul. If I hadn't been paralyzed with fear, I might have run out into the street and taken my chances with Bert's gang. "An old Chinaman," said Larry. He and I had stopped making faces in the window of the Chinese restaurant when my dad told us what those people were capable of. "Let's get out of here before he puts a curse on us!" The curtain closed as Bert and his gang ran away. I gathered up all the cigarette cartons and picked up the case of beer and was about to leave when I heard the front door creak open. I couldn't even fathom the amount of shit I was in. Was I standing on the grave of his ancient ancestors? Burying them under the driveway seemed like an odd thing to do, but their people had mysterious ways. "Hey, kid," someone said. The voice sounded old, but not very Chinese. "What are you doing behind my car?" I stood up nervously. "I'm really sorry, Mr. I suddenly realized that I didn't know this guy's name. I was about to gamble on the probability of it being Ching Chong, but then I spotted it on the back of his car. "Mr. Mitsubishi?" Mr. Mitsubishi glanced down at his car, then stared at me. "I didn't mean to trespass on the graves of your ancestors. I swear it." Since I was already here, I figured I might as well ask. I was hoping you could teach me karate." "Karate? What the hell makes you think I know anything about—" Mr. Mitsubishi paused in thought, stroking his wispy white beard. Then he shrugged. "Ah, yes, karate. I know much well. Ancient art of my people." He sounded like a proper Chinaman now. I gawked at him for a moment. "Did you just forget how to speak English?" Mr. Mitsubishi slapped me across the face. "Ow!" "First lesson, never let guard down." I rubbed my cheek and nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Mitsubishi." "Why you want learn karate?" "There are these kids at school. They won't stop picking on me." Yes, I see you hide here like little bitch baby." "I thought maybe if I broke all their spines, they'd leave me alone." Mr. Mitsubishi nodded slowly and stroked his beard. "Very good reason. Noble and just." "I don't have any yin-yangs to pay you with, but I thought maybe I could do some yard work for you or something." I couldn't offer him my dad's beer, but since I'd swiped a few extra cartons of cigarettes for Mom, I thought I might sweeten the pot with that. I picked one up and held it out to him. "And this." He accepted the carton and stared at it for a moment. "Marlboro Red. Very good. What's your name?" "Donny." "Now, your name is Donny-san. You come here tomorrow morning, Donny-san. I teach you karate." "Thank you so much, Mr. Mitsubishi." I gathered the beer and the rest of the smokes, then ran the rest of the way home. By this time tomorrow, I would know karate. 4. "That you, Donny?" Dad called out when I opened the back door. "Yeah, Dad." I set the Coors Light down on the table, then hurriedly tossed all but one of the cigarette cartons into my room. "You get that beer?" "Sure did. No trouble at all, except Gary the hobo got shot a little." "Bring me one, would you?" I opened the box, hoping the beer had had enough time to settle while I walked home from Mr. Mitsubishi's house. "Where are you?" "In the shitter. Hurry up." Tapping on the top of the can before opening it was supposed to make the fizz settle down. At least I'd heard that somewhere before. I tapped it all the way from the kitchen to the open door of the bathroom. Dad was on the toilet, and it smelled like he'd been there for a while. I handed him the beer. "I got Mom's cigarettes, too. Where is she?" "Out sucking dick," said Dad. "Just leave them on the table." "Sure thing." I backed out, keeping my eyes on the beer as if I'd just handed him a live grenade. for some reason, he didn't immediately open it. "Ah," he said when I was halfway back to the kitchen. "Nothing like a good cold one on the balls." I flinched when I heard the can finally crack open, but the long slurp and lack of swearing that followed suggested that the foam explosion was minimal. After I finished putting the rest of the cans in the fridge, I went to my room to hide the cigarette cartons more carefully. "Mom's working late tonight," Dad shouted from the bathroom. "Supper's in the freezer." When I opened the freezer door, I found a half-full bag of Totino's pizza rolls. "Whoa!" I said. "These are name brand." Dad laughed. "Mom swiped them from the Fargle's freezer on her way out after sucking Mr. Fargle's dick." I didn't think anything could top name-brand pizza rolls for dinner, but knowing they were Bert Fargle's pizza rolls was the greatest seasoning of all. Figuring that Dad was going to want some too, I put what was left of the bag in the microwave. "God damn, boy," said Dad after he flushed and the smell of pizza rolls began to overtake the smell coming from the bathroom. "Those smell good. You know, I always thought you was pretty worthless, but I reckon maybe there's a chef in you yet." My dad wasn't the type to hand out praise like that all willy-nilly, so him saying that warmed my heart like the inside of a delicious Totino's pizza roll. After dinner, I washed the dish while Dad took off his pants, sat on the sofa, and opened his laptop. "I think I'm going to turn in early," I said. I couldn't wait for tomorrow to come. Plus, learning karate was probably going to take up most of the day, so I wanted to be well rested. Dad paused the video he was watching, stopped whatever he was doing with his other hand, and looked back at me. "Huh?" "I had a pretty long day, and I'm pretty beat, so I think I'm going to go to bed now." Dad shrugged. "And why do I give a shit?" Let me ask you a question, Donny. Have you ever tried to whack off to a 400-pound Mexican woman taking a piss on a dead armadillo?" I tried recalling any past experiences that might even come close to whatever he was talking about. "No, sir, I don't think so." "Well, it takes concentration, Donny. Focus. And right now, you're breaking my concentration." "Sorry, Dad. I didn't mean—" "Get me a beer and then go to your room. If I hear another word out of you tonight, my dong ain't the only thing I'll be whacking. You hear me, boy?" "Yes, sir," I said as I hurried to the fridge to grab a beer. Then I clapped my hand over my mouth, hoping that hadn't counted as hearing another word out of me. Thankfully, when I returned with the beer, he was thoroughly entranced with his video. I put the beer down on the coffee table, then ran to my room and shut the door behind me. I tried as hard as I could to go to sleep, but I was too excited. Thinking a bit of light reading might help me relax, I opened up the copy of Hustle Horror I'd swiped from Quick Fix. I flipped through the pages, but there wasn't much in there to read at all. Just a bunch of pictures of naked people. Some of them were alone in strange poses, while others looked to be wrestling with each other. The pages in the middle, as promised, featured two identical twin women peeing on each other. But as hard as I searched, I couldn't seem to find any story associated with it. In fact, some of the only writing I found in the whole magazine was a full-page ad for Hello Titty, a new store that had recently opened up in town. I remembered Dad mentioning something about how much it was going to bring in to the local economy. I couldn't understand what my dad and Gary the Hobo found so fascinating about this magazine. To me, it was just kind of boring, and a little gross. "What you readin'?" asked the voice of an angel from my open bedroom window. I looked up to find Wendy Peters staring back at me, then quickly thrust Hustle Horror down on the other side of my bed. I tried to think of something more intellectual from my dad's collection in the bathroom. "It's the latest issue of Dry Humpin'." "I think it's good that you like to read," said Wendy. "Maybe you could teach me someday?" I felt a sudden warmth in my cheeks at the thought of being so close to...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?